Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing a true classic and a rarity. This is the FP Journe Tourbillon Souverain. It is from the generation often known as the Tourbillon Remontoir, and this would be a Series 3 within that generation. So the timepiece is 38 millimeters in diameter in platinum, and when you combine this case and dial together with the Series 3 status, you find that there are only 6 exactly like this in the world. So it's a rarity among rarities. Now, in terms of actual size, 38 millimeters is the diameter, 9.4 millimeters is the thickness, and from lug tip to lug tip, 44.9 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll take a quick look at this watch on my wrist and get a sense of how it fits on a 16 centimeter circumference wrist. My wrist is compact, but the watch is more so, which makes it an ideal fit. You can see that the lugs are nowhere near the edge of my wrist, so on a smaller wrist or on a lady's wrist, you're going to find that this is elegant and perfectly suited. It's also more discreet, so if you're a man who has a taste for, well, discretion or traditional sizes, this is going to be a perfect companion. It's easily low enough to fit underneath the cuff, and you can see that the bezel is domed, so there will be no problem in that regard. Taking a look at the strap, you can see that the strap is considerably newer than the watch, as it's the latest generation of FP Journe strap. So dark brown, large rectangular scale alligator leather. There's a folded edge, monotone stitch. We have a curved spring bar so that the lugs can be drilled close to the case, but there's no impediment to the motion of the strap because of that curve. You can also see, and this is where you can tell that it really is a newer Journe strap, that there's gator on the bottom as well as the top. So rectangular scale on the top, small round scale on the bottom. The idea is to create a more durable strap. It's more expensive with gator on both sides, but this watch is worth it. Another element that's more recent at FP Journe is these pull tab spring bars, so you can pull the tab and remove the strap without a tool. We also have a matching FP Journe platinum pin buckle to match the platinum case. Now, as you can see, this is a lovely unpolished case, so it does bear some marks of prior ownership, but it's been carefully worn. And you can see that all of the critical elements remain intact. The taper of the lugs, the overlapping lip of the case back, and the bezel, which define the mid-case profile. The bezel is domed, the case back is domed, everything's of high polish. The lugs turn almost 90 degrees from the horizontal of the case band. And you can see that we have a double dimple knurled crown in the FP Journe style. The dial is made of rose gold, so it's not just rose gold in color, it is actually a disc of solid gold. We have a polished steel bezel fixed by bolts, or screws I should say, for the hours and the minutes, which sit over at 3 o'clock. We have a flat Remontoir cock that is black polished and then beveled on its sides. And then we have large screws fixing the dial to the movement below. So you know when you're looking at those large screws, you're looking at a generation 1, 2, or 3. With the more common generation 4, those bolts got significantly smaller. Now, the Tourbillon is filigree style, which is to say the cage is in a wire fashion. It's very fine and delicate in appearance. We have this lovely rounded and black polished upper brace or upper bridge for the Tourbillon. The Tourbillon is free sprung, adjusted in 6 positions, beats at 3 hertz or 6 beats per second, and it has an overcoil hairspring, so in pretty much any position, it will keep consistent time. Now, we have this power reserve indicator that moves backwards, or at least it moves backwards relative to expectations. As you could see, as I wind, the power reserve indicator progresses towards 0. There's a reason for that. It's inspired by marine chronometers, which needed to be wound exactly 24 hours apart. So it was important to know how many hours since the last winding, not remaining time till empty. And that's what we have here, 0 hours since fully wound. The watch is a 42-hour power reserve, but for 28 hours, provided you wind the watch at the same time every day, the Remontoir, or the linear spring constant force device, you can see it through the reverse, it will ensure that the escapement receives constant force. So with constant force comes constant amplitude, comes exceptionally precise timing. So the advantage of this watch comes less from the fact that it's a tourbillon, at least from a chronometric standpoint. It's the combination of 6-position adjustment, a free-sprung balance, an overcoil hairspring with optimally centered mass, and then this Remontoir constant force device. And those features working in concert are truly responsible for the precision of the watch. In its day, it would have been water resistant to 30 meters, but please don't test that theory today. This is a very collectible timepiece. You can see that, especially when you get closer to the tourbillon, evidence of hand finishing is far more apparent than on more modern Journe watches, which are perhaps more perfect in their details, but less obviously made by a human being. On the reverse side, you can see that this is a brass movement FP Journe, which means that we have rhodium on top of brass bridges and plates. Now, the silver that you see is the rhodium. Brass, of course, has a nice golden hue, but the rhodium-plated brass went away roughly mid-2004, and while gold movements might be worth more from a commodity standpoint, the brass movements are worth more for collectors because they are scarcer. So this is brass movement, that's discontinued. This is the Tourbillon Remontoir, which is a discontinued model. This is a 38mm case, which is a discontinued case size. And then there are a couple of other elements. You can see here we have the maker's mark of Eleanor, and then we have both Swiss and French hallmarks on the case. That's because up until about mid-2008, FP Journe relied on a Paris metropolitan area case maker called Eleanor to make his cases. Later, he bought the company and moved it to Geneva, but through mid-2008, you still saw a lot of these Eleanor cases. You can also see on the reverse side that there is a year on the case back, 01, and T is the reference, and from 1999 through about mid-2005, Journe case backs have that year of case manufacture stamped on the reverse side or engraved into the reverse side. So that's something to look for when trying to chart the changes for FP Journe watches through the years or identify the era in which particular watch was made. So this is one of 6, an extraordinary piece and one of the most important from one of the most important modern independent watchmakers. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.